and welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, January 25th. I'm rushing everything already. January 25th, 2020. How is everybody doing?
Good.
We're doing good, Raka.
Good.
We are officially open for business.
Yay.
Hey,
All right. Yeah, I think we're gonna wait until after Farron to do the housekeeping. So we'll just get right into Farron OS. So this is the second week that we've been trying Farron. We are going to give our final thoughts on it. So why don't we just get right into it? Tony, sir, how are you tonight?
I'm good, thanks, Rocco. And you?
I'm doing excellent, sir. How about Farron
Good.
OS, though?
Yeah, it's still on the testing laptop, and it still hasn't put a foot wrong. I've messed about with it quite a few times, done a few bits and pieces. It's all good. It's a double thumbs up from me.
All right, nice. Ben, you did not try Farron OS this week, right?
No, I didn't. I was busy with school and other things. Just had a lot of crap going on, so I couldn't get to it, sadly.
All right, Shickle.
Hi there.
What's happening?
It's pretty good. A lot of stuff's been happening lately. So many new releases all at once. I did get to play with Farron, and I thought it was really cool. I've never used I think it's called the Simple Launcher that is set in there by default. I thought that was really interesting. The layout of it feels a lot more dynamic. The way it moves when you're searching through results is kind of nice. There were a couple little bugs with it at first that are already fixed, which is super cool. It seems like he's taken feedback pretty well and like hammering out all the small little issues insanely quick. So that's super nice to see. He's really attentive to detail. I liked the idea of having the clock up at the top with the notification center, especially because it just auto hides whenever you open up a window or put something over it. I thought that was really clever. I felt like the default icon theme was really nice, but because it was kind of only partially covering things, it felt a little mismatched. But obviously, that's an easy enough problem to fix. The initial screen where you choose your theme, like your like light, dark, or default, and then getting to set accent colors in addition to that is really, really cool. There are so many themes out there, or so many different looks that I like, but would love with different color tones. This absolutely hits the nail on the head. I thought that was fantastic. So all in all, thumbs up for me. I think it's very, very solid KDE implementation.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that, Shickle. Bash, are you there, sir?
I am.
How are you today?
Not too bad. How about you?
Good. Did you get a chance to look at Farron?
I did. So ultimately, I thought overall the overall look was very good. I ended up using the dark theme, and I think that's something that we've talked about before. I feel like a lot of times, distros do not really take into account what a first impression looks like. So I think Farron's on the right track when it comes to his dark theme and just how that all looks together. The welcome center, that was pretty cool. I liked how it fit together. I would actually consider adding like the browser chooser in there. And then I know he has the KDE Connect, and I thought it was pretty cool when I switched over to Firefox that it had the little install the browser extension down in the bottom, like in the bottom right hand corner next to where the clock normally would be, but obviously it's not there for his. But I noticed he had the Firefox sync. It was saying, hey, you can install that. It'd be cool if he had the browser stuff in the Welcome Center to also offer to install that for KDE Connect stuff. So that was just, I think it's Plasma Sync or Browser Sync or something like that. I forget what it's called. But overall, I mean, he's got a lot of ideas that are pretty cool, and I look forward to seeing where he kind of goes with it next.
You mentioned the dark theme. I think those icons that he has for the dark theme are really, really well done. It's a nice touch. Yeah. They kind of remind me a little bit. I don't know if you guys have seen the Ubuntu's Yaru theme, some of the ideas that have been kicking around, and they have a kind of a folder like that where the folder itself is really dark and then the tab of it is light in the background, and it kind of a neat look, a little different, something new, right? So, okay. Well, thanks, Vash. I appreciate that. Peter.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
So I actually installed Ferrin OS during last week's show, and then had a week to test it. Very good distro. I mean, I've nothing major to report. Very stable. I turn it on most days. Play around with it. I did install Flatpak, and I'm glad that works straight out of the box without actually having to go to FlatHub and grab the text and put it in the terminal. And just the software center had Flatpak enabled, and Tux Racer works beautifully on the system. So I did move the panel to the very top, turned on single click. I love the functionality to change the menus, to change how the clock looks. I changed it to the clock that has seconds. I mean, very functional and quite a good system, and a very good version of KDE. But you know what else has a very good version of KDE?
Here it comes.
Solus 4.1 had KDE released today.
We only made it 7 minutes into the episode before somebody mentioned it.
Well, I have to agree with you. Last time I tried Solus KDE, it was very clean, very well put together. So,
but we're talking about Ferrin, and Ferrin's operating system is very, very nice.
Yep,
definitely.
Somebody else even made a video on it. I don't know, Schickle. Steve, sir,
yes,
what do you think of Ferrin OS, brother?
Well, I reviewed it, 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if anybody was paying attention because my stream was hijacked, but no, I mean, he gets a double thumbs up because on my testing laptop, anything that's got Calamares, I always have to go back in and put the boot flag in. Didn't have to do it this time. He said he fixed it, and he did. I don't know what he did, but just for that alone, he gets a good double thumbs up. I mean, it's just well themed. It's a beautiful distribution. His the way he has thought things out is just kind of amazing for a young man. I just think it's just. I mean, he's got nowhere to go but up. I can't wait to see what he's got next. I know personally, I mean, I like, for the few times that I did like check out any type of KDE, I didn't like Discover. I always had an issue. It would show like at 98% program installing and then get stuck there. It would install, but you had to close it and find out that, otherwise you're waiting there. So having the Mint Software Center in there with Synaptic is nice. I do like Nemo as the file manager. I like that whole web browser. I think that's a really nice touch. I think Vash is right. If that was in the Welcome Center, giving them a chance to install what they want off the bat is a nice thing. I think a lot of it is just very well thought out. It's not just a pretty version of KDE. I mean, there's some thought process behind it. So I got to give Ferrin out there, very good kudos on that. Very nice.
Yep. Yeah, there's so much detail put into it, dude. There's a ton of work that goes into any distro, but Ferrin puts in so much extra detail that other ones kind of maybe overlook. It's not to say that they're doing a bad job, but he just adds that extra special touches to it.
Yes.
And by the way, he did release a snapshot today. So if you want to go, I don't know if you have to, if that gets just updated through the update manager or.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it does.
But if you do download it, it will be an updated snapshot for the ISO today.
Yeah, I know there was a snapshot Wednesday when was it Tuesday? Monday, Tuesday? I forget. My days are all melded together here. I talked about first thing off the bat was the snapshot has been downloaded and done, but that was the other day.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. It's called Zinc.
Zinc. Yeah, you're right. It is actually. Jason, you were right. Dan Kelly, sir. You are muted, Dan. Sorry. See, we tell everybody to mute when they're not talking, and they forget to unmute when they talk.
Yeah, I try and keep the mouse over the microphone so I can see that it's muted, but that ain't always the case. I went last week, but I've been using it on and off. It's very nice. The only thing that I have an issue with is all the settings with KDE Plasma. It's a lot of choices to take in all at once. But other than that, the theming's great. I love the way it looks. It's a really good distro. I hope it goes places.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job last week. I'm glad to hear that Plasma, the settings. So for folks who haven't been following 5.18, excuse me, Plasma 5.18, the LTS release, they've done some things with the settings. One specific thing that I think is going to help folks. So when you go into the general settings panel at the top, there's a search. The search now will give you a list of the different areas where those settings will be found, because one of the things with Plasma is the settings might be in different places, right? You search for desktop or something like that, and you're going to get 2 or 3 different options. The nice thing here is it still gives you the context. So you can see, okay, this desktop is under the, device settings. So that's probably means something to do with maybe the hardware or something like that. So it gives you that context. You can click around and it keeps that context for you. So it seems like a very small change, but in using it over the last couple of weeks, it's really been one of those things that gets you right to what you're looking for very quickly. So hopefully that helps you in 5.18. We'll see. All right, Jason, good to see you, sir. How are you tonight?
Doing good, doing good.
Good.
As far as the Farron OS goes, I had to reinstall it into a virtual box of the hard drive, and my test laptop decided it wanted to die. So I've been messing around with it, and I do definitely like the distro. Being myself being new to the Linux as it is good for me to test out other things. Like I never used Plasma before, so that was a new thing for me as well. And I definitely enjoyed it. It's definitely a smooth run. I had no issues installing it, no issues, customizing it or messing around with it. Nothing, everything seemed to work, and it worked smoothly.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for that. Daniel, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm just fine. Thank you. Did you get a chance to test Farron?
Excuse me. I did not. It was on my list of things to do, but work's been crazy. So
no worries. There's no pressure here. If you don't get a chance to test, not a big deal.
I do want to look at it. So it is on my list of follow-up distros along with probably about 10 others. So
good. Well, if you haven't had the chance, it's definitely worth taking a look. Good. All right. Alan, how are you tonight, sir? You're muted.
I'm doing all right.
There you go.
I'm doing all right.
So you did go last week,
yeah.
but did you have any more thoughts? Or no, you didn't go last week.
I actually do. I actually had a big problem with external drives with Farron and Nemo. Every time I would plug one in, it would recognize it mounted just fine. But when I went to unmount it, to unplug it, it locked Nemo up and crashed the operating system. It did it with nothing else other than Nemo. I installed Dolphin. I installed a couple others that didn't do it with anything but Nemo. So that might be something that Farron might want to take a look at.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I don't know why. I just updated it one day. So other than that, it was all right.
Okay.
All right. Colin, did we skip you?
Yeah, I did go last week, but I just thought I'd add a couple of thoughts because I'm using it as my daily driver, and I've just had wireless deactivating while watching YouTube, mainly lengthy YouTube videos. I don't know what that's about. Don't know if it's a Farron thing, a Plasma thing, or a hardware compatibility thing, or maybe even my modem thing. I don't know. So that's really weird. Besides that, I'm enjoying it. The other thing I've got is present windows. You know, when you present windows and the windows zoom out, if you're on if you've only got on that monitor one window open like YouTube and you present windows, it doesn't zoom out. It just takes up the whole window, which I've been trying to find an alternative, but there doesn't seem to be any. So I don't know if anyone knows of any way of getting that, because I like to zoom out the windows, even if there's one. So
it's actually a limitation within that particular desktop effect. It's like a
Right.
KDE issue. It's present across all of them, unfortunately.
Okay. All right.
And
okay.
It doesn't do it like GNOME does, where even one window will.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
that network issue I was having on KD Plasma in Arch, I don't know if it's the
Right.
same issue you were having, but I was having an issue with Plasma on Arch with it disconnecting for me. So that might be a Plasma issue as well.
I have kind of
Yep.
a guess that it might possibly be if you guys have K-Wallet enabled, sometimes that messes with Wi-Fi connections. Like it'll just randomly kick you because it can't auth for a moment, and then when it goes to reconnect, it can because the keys are actually there. It just didn't read them. It's happened
Even if you don't,
before.
even if you don't use it, Chicken, is that?
If you have it disabled, it shouldn't affect it. But if this is the cause, if you've had it enabled when you first connected the network, then it's possible that it's still trying to go through it.
No, I didn't enable it because I don't use KDE Wallet. So
It's used. I think it's enabled by default.
I'm not sure if it's in Ferron OS, is it? I don't know.
It was for me.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I've had that screw with network connectivity before.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but that's the only thing. Otherwise, I'm really enjoying the experience anyway. It's a really good operating system, works really well. Besides that issue, everything else I'm enjoying. I'm using the familiar layout with the tiled menu. Really love that thing. It's a little bit Windows 10-ish, but yep, it's got a lot of tweaks involved in that menu, so I love it. Yeah,
it's
so
better.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah, so
Very
that's my
nice.
experience.
All right, Eric, you have some thoughts on Farron?
Yeah, I spoke last week on it. Really, I think what I'm hearing from a lot of people is don't underestimate the value of these layout tools. You know, to be able to quickly give people a starting point to then customize. So I think a lot of desktops may have a bit of a polarizing approach. You know, some of them are very familiar to people coming from other operating systems, and some of them aren't. And so I know, again, just to mention another, Manjaro in their upcoming GNOME release has a layout switcher, and it does exactly the same thing essentially as what Farron's doing, which is let me look at a thumbnail of something. Hey, that looks like what a computer looks like to me. I click on it, and now my computer looks like that. That is huge for not only people who aren't necessarily familiar with how to customize things, but even just as a starting point. Like if I know coming in that I like that familiar layout, let's say with the bar on the bottom, and I click it, then I only have 2 or 3 things to customize versus having to do all of those things myself. That's a huge time saver. And it's also nice because maybe I want to switch. Maybe I just want to try something else. And instead of having to completely trash everything I've done, now I can just switch between them. So I think maybe people could look at Farron and say, well, he spent so much time on the presentation. Maybe he could have put other time somewhere else. I think that's a smart move on his part and others to make that initial experience and then being able to switch between them that much easier for people.
Especially using Plasma as the base. Because, my gosh, something's in the air. Because Plasma is so detailed in so many settings, and that does, I don't know, not drive people away, but it shies people away sometimes from trying Plasma because it's just overwhelming. And I think that's a great thing that, Kubuntu does a great job of setting some good defaults, but I think Farron takes it one step further with setting it up for people that really are not going to navigate all those settings for Plasma. It gives them a good start where they can feel comfortable in Plasma, and then maybe as they go along, as they get more comfortable with it, then they can change some other settings.
Yeah, and he makes it front and center too. It's the first thing he asks you to do when you log in, right? So that people don't have to go hunt for it. He assumes that someone's probably going to want to do that, or at least be presented with the option. And so I think he's really on the right track with a lot of these. And you just have to think, like, where is he getting this insight? You know what I mean? Like maybe it's his own use and his own experience, because I know he's been in it for, everyone says, oh, he's 17, but I mean, let's keep in mind, he's been doing this for a while. So this isn't like his first attempt. So yeah, I mean, that's really, I don't have specifics other than it's an approach. I mean, we look at elementary, we look at other distros and say, these are somebody's approach or opinion on what a desktop should be, and he's very much done that as well in his own way.
Yep.
So, Barbara.
Okay. I actually, when I first connected tonight to through Zoom, I had it on my old XPS 17, and somehow I don't think and that was even using an Ethernet card cable. So I don't know what that was, but other than that, I actually have been having fun with it. And for someone who basically loathes KDE, it actually makes it pleasant for someone who really doesn't like it, because like what Eric said, you can go in and, first thing I did was kind of make it look like what I like to see. And then I said, oh, good. So now things are kind of like the way I want them. And then I can start installing software and modifying it as they get comfortable with it. And I've been having fun with it. And so far, everything has worked except Zoom tonight. And I don't know what that was, because now I'm using the same Ethernet connection, different machine, and this one's working. Maybe that one's just getting tired. I don't know. And the other thing that I found, it was kind of cool, is that I have an external monitor, and the other computer is a laptop also. I plugged in the HDMI cable into the laptop, and I had two screens. And KDE does something that my Mac always has, but Ubuntu Mate does not do. I can have different images on each screen nicely. I mean, it's there and I can click on it, I can change it. And it handles it the way the Mac does. And I think that was really a nice touch. So that was, I really liked it. I do like it. I'm going to leave it on this machine. I'm going to play with it some more. And I think he's doing a phenomenal job. And somehow he is extremely perceptive of what people like and what people need. And as I said, I don't normally like KDE. I'm not a fan, but I can very happily live with this on that computer. I did find one thing that drove me crazy, because I like to have my weather up on the top as a little applet, and it tells me that it's 34 degrees out and misting is what it's telling me right now. But I couldn't get the weather applet. I could get it in there up on I took my status bar mover from the bottom to the top. That's me, the Mac user. But I could not get it to select the Binghamton weather station. Now, yeah. National Weather Service. I picked that. It will, pick NOAA, whatever, and I can't type anything in the search box. Absolutely nothing. And I thought, did my keyboard go squirrely? Because I've been doing so much stuff. I rebooted it was the same thing. So, and that was, to me, I like to have my little weather. It's a stupid thing, but
no. I have weather in mine too. I always look for it. I always like to have it. Yeah. And that's another thing in 5.18 that supposedly they've made some changes to the way that's searching and that screen itself works.
Oh, and another thing they need to do with that is allow you to have it check the weather more than once every 30 minutes. Like around here, the weather changes, and in 15 minutes we can go from sunshine to whiteouts in the winter.
I haven't looked, Barb, but maybe if you look under when you go to add new widgets, that bar that pops up, search down there or install and search the thing that comes up and see if there's an alternative to that weather. There might be.
I'm sure there is.
Actually, you know what, Barb?
What?
You would love this.
Oh, cool.
I found this new add-on. Well, it's not new, but it's new to me. It's the clock itself.
Yeah.
But the calendar has a built-in weather. And it has a forecast it's really nice.
Like Ubuntu has, like Ubuntu Mate has that.
Yeah, it's something a lot like that. It's really nice.
So the clock has weather built in. Oh, go check that out.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Also, to build on what you said, Eric, about the alternatives thing, if you right click on like a specific type of widget, so like let's say you do have like a type of weather widget up there, there's usually like a alternatives button as well, depending on whichever one it is. So that sometimes comes up too.
Yeah. But I think he's doing a marvelous job, and I'm really enjoying it. And would I suggest this to someone who is wants to move to Linux or wants a different Linux distribution? Yeah, I would. And I've been following it for quite a while because I just think he's absolutely amazing, considering how young he is. As I said, and how perceptive he is in certain things. So yeah, now it's starting to mature now, and it's really, really good. It's really nice.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that, Barb.
You're welcome.
Ezra's. That's the guess I'm going to take at how to say that.
Yes.
How are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can. You sound fine. How are you today?
Oh, good. Good. You probably know me as Nix.
Aha, there you go.
Welcome to Biddle, Esnix.
So thank you, Rocco. I played with Farron recently, and in the past, the Cinnamon version I wasn't too keen on, and I'm not really a KDE user, so the current version is also a little alien to me. But overall, I enjoyed my time with it.
Excellent. Well, thanks for being here. It's I think many of us watch your channel, and I appreciate your content. So thanks for stopping by.
Well, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome anytime, brother.
Okay, thanks, Rocco.
All right. Okay, so the first week I tried Farron, and I said to you I had certain things that I ended up getting it installed, and then I couldn't boot into it after that. Well, this week I tried to install it again, and I installed it the first time, and at the end, it didn't give me the normal screen for, saying to remove the media installation. It just stopped, basically. And it must have failed somehow. I wasn't able to install it. So then I installed it again, got through that screen, but I ended up getting a blank cursor for when I booted up into it. So I don't know exactly what was going on. I don't know if I had a bad download, a bad USB or what, but I didn't have time to continually try it. So that was my experience this week. But anybody else have any final thoughts they want to give on Farron?
I just wanted to once again extend on something that Eric said earlier, and that was with the whole sort of not having to go out and grab all these different components to customize things yourself in this sort of way. Like, because one, you have the potential of downloading things that might not be safe or might actually make the system unusable. If you download a bunch of like graphical assets that make the UI completely illegible, like there's not really any way for a lot of people to go back from that. And the other thing is as well, because patching things yourself is annoying too. If you're missing icons, that's kind of hard to fix because you've got to literally fork an icon set yourself and patch the right things in. And the other thing on top of that is official support. The fact that you've got different aesthetics, different appearances, different looks and feels of the OS that's actually coming from the source. This basically means that you don't have to worry about it not working. Like, this is a supported feature. This isn't something that's just coming off of the web and you're on your own. So it's comforting, and it also covers GTK stuff as well. Like, he's done a really good job at making sure that even GTK applications match the Qt settings that he creates.
Yep. Anyone else? All right. Like I said, he did do a snapshot update today. Some of the changes were, he added wallpapers. There were errors, or maybe not errors, but sometimes the web browser manager didn't install web browsers completely, or it would continue even though it had failed in the background. All of these things he added fixes for. Some UEFI boot settings he added languages to, and just overall fixes. So definitely check out Farron OS. If you didn't do it this week, check out the updated snapshot, download it and take a look at it. And Farron, I want to thank you for all of the work that you put into it, man. There is I mean, again, I hate to be a broken record, but there's so much work that goes into any distro. But dude, you put so much effort and so much work into it, so much love. Thank you so much for doing that so that we can all enjoy it.
And I did think of one last thing. I mentioned it last week. I completely agree with that. So one of the benefits that I've always seen of these offshoot or smaller distributions is they come up with different ideas. A lot of what Farron's been doing is in collaboration with upstream projects. And so some of the things that he's doing may very well make their way into Plasma or, some of these other projects he's been working with. So it's not just him off in the corner somewhere doing something by himself. He's actually having an impact, and we may see those things in the future. So,
yep, agreed.
Is one of those things a global theme changer?
I believe so, Esnix. Yeah.
Yeah, that's was a big selling point for me.
Yeah,
I thought that was a very slick way to integrate all of KDE's settings changes into one place.
I think the simple menu was another thing that he's been helping with as well. If you look at the default simple menu that you can get under Neon and Kubuntu and all of that, it has the categories on the right-hand side. So he changed the layout a little bit and he customized it. And so I know he's been working on that as well. And KDE themselves have been saying that they think maybe the simple menu is a better default option than kickoff.
Yeah.
I agree. It's a better option than kickoff. That is like one of the first things I change in any KDE installation is removing kickoff and using another menu, whether it be the full screen menu, the dashboard, or the simple. I can't never use the simple menu, or I couldn't before because of that whole dual screen problem. But I always use a different menu than the kickoff. So, all right, that's our thoughts on Farron OS. That's what we got. We have to pick a distro for the next 2 weeks. So, okay. Oh my gosh, here we go. Here we go again with the Solus KDE Plasma. In case you guys didn't hear, Solus released a KDE Plasma version. Was it today, Peter? You're muted, dude.
Peter couldn't wait to actually put it on peer-to-peer.
Was it today that it was released?
It was today, and actually it was 2 days early. The countdown was going to end on Monday. So they released it 2 days early.
So in case any of you didn't hear, it's released, and you can go check it out. So hey, we got some time, so why don't we talk about it a little bit? What, Shickle, you did a video on it. What do you like about Solus Plasma?
So, you know how people typically do say that Solus is just fast? Like, that's one of the things that people always bring up, and they just say it like they don't even explain it. They're just like, it's fast.
You can't explain it, dude. It just is.
The thing is you know how it was like at that level where it was fast and you couldn't explain it? They somehow did that and then like amplified it, and now I'm really confused. So it takes me less than 3 seconds on a SATA SSD, not even my NVMe, less than 3 seconds to go from BIOS to login screen. Like, it's just there. Yep. And then I'm assuming on the NVMe it's going to be even faster if it's at this point. They did changes to the installer, so now they're using a different compression method for the ISOs, which means the way it like dumps the data is going to be super fast. I actually thought my install failed because it was just kind of like going and then it was done. I thought it just skipped things. I was genuinely confused, but I booted into it and it was fine. So like, I feel like I sound like I'm exaggerating it, but I've never seen any other distro perform this way. It's
it is even like you're saying, the 4.0 release was, so the install wasn't as fast as you're saying, but yeah, the boot up time, you start and it would literally be at the login and you're like, how is that possible? So Rocco, if you considered Solus, would it just be Plasma or would we could do any of them? Because they've got Budgie, GNOME, Mate, and Plasma.
Well, I mean, I can't remember how long it's been since we did Solus. I know that we did do it.
If only
fairly
someone would
recently.
post a list, Rocco.
I know, but I don't have time to go look at it right now, dude.
Last time was March the 30th last year.
Really? It's been that long?
March the 30th. Solus 4.0, March the 30th.
I was going to suggest that we do, just a suggestion, that we do a similar thing to what we do with Ubuntu and on a week-by-week basis and try them all. Just a suggestion.
Well, so here's my only argument against that.
Yep.
It's the same underlying system with different desktops. So there really isn't a tremendous amount of variation. I mean, it's obviously going to be a different desktop, but you're still going to be using EO package. You're still going to be using the same repos. I mean, it's not like they've again, if we had 2 weeks, I think that would give us a lot of time for anyone who's willing to try more than one. You could, but it would at least give people time to pick maybe the one that they would be the most interested in and give it a try.
Well, the other thing is we give Ubuntu that option because they have so many different flavors, and those flavors are different. But we don't really give so there's only so many weeks in a year, and we can't give that option to everybody because Manjaro has so many editions, and like we would be giving it would be, so it has to probably stick with if we're going to do Ubuntu's, it would be a 1 week thing because of the release cycles that they have. But everything else should probably stay at 2 weeks, I would think. I'm okay with opening it up to whatever Solus you want to try, but I would personally be trying the Plasma because that's the big thing. I mean, that's the big release.
I would try Budgie. I probably wouldn't try Mate. I'm not trying to. I would probably try all of them. I'll try all of them, but I would probably use Plasma, Budgie, and just to see what they've done.
I would try the Budgie because Mint Spider says I need to try it because of what I had to say about Ubuntu.
Peter agrees.
All right.
I'll do the Mate.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to just rush into Solus. Let's hear from the chat, and let's, you guys think about it for a couple minutes of, there's other distros that are on the list that, we've been saying we're going to try and haven't yet.
That's what I was going to ask. What are some of the ones that people have been?
Well, Nitrix was put on that list. Tramjaro was put on that list. Arch Labs was on that list. And
we never did do Nitrix, did we?
We never did do Nitrix because we went right into
it's
other
a little
things.
So Nitrix, the versions that are available to us without payment are either their development release or the Manjaro build of it.
Okay,
right.
I knew there was something.
They're like a beta thing type.
And I've tried both, and they're a little rough because their development. I mean, they're supposed to be, right? I mean, that's not a criticism. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the list in the Discourse forums, and there is everything from the Endeavor OS Net installer, Clear Linux, Linux Lite, Chaos, Cubes, Red Hat, Fedora Silverblue, Tiny Core, Enso, Red Core, Gecko, Calculate. There are so many distros to try. It's
I don't know. Can we just use the spaghetti principle?
What is the spaghetti principle?
Oh, you keep throwing stuff, at the wall until it sticks.
Oh, okay, got you. Okay, I didn't know it was called that, but okay.
That's how I learned it.
Yeah.
Okay. If I can add to the mix, is one more. One of our own, Ali Present Arms, recently put out PC Linux OS in an open box version.
Really?
Yeah.
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 And last time we did his distro was way back in 2018 in September.
Okay, so see, this is what I'm saying. So as much as I'm excited, or we would be excited to try Solus Plasma, there's so many on the list. I'm not saying we shouldn't try Solus. What I'm saying is let's look at it from let's step back for a second and look at all the choices we have and then make a good educated decision on what we want to try.
I'm going to throw, so you mentioned Endeavor, the net installer. I'm just going to stick it out there that if you haven't tried it, I mean, it's basically for me, it's the simple installer for Arch. They give you some nice tools to do basic things like set your mirrors and just real, simple, straightforward admin tasks. And other than that, it's just a vanilla desktop on top of Arch. And so I think that definitely warrants testing at some point, because it does give you the option of installing whatever desktop you want from a single download. And,
right. Yeah,
I have tried it.
I could honestly make a case for every distro on there that we should try. Like,
Yeah.
I think the whole Tramjaro thing is really interesting of what they're trying to do. I think Nitrix is really interesting in what they're trying to do. I think, like I said, we could go and, they're all on the list for a reason, and I think there are many reasons why we should try them. So let's give it a couple minutes, and you guys think about what we want to try. I'm gonna do a little bit of housekeeping here. Last week was a very hard show because of the passing of Mark Reeves. I just wanted to put out there that there is a GoFundMe out now for Mark's wife, Jane. And if you would like to donate to that, that would be great. She has MS, and Mark was her primary caretaker. So I'm going to post the link right now, and it's already started. If you want to, and I'm not saying you got to donate a specific number, but it would be awesome if you guys would donate whatever you could. What else I got? I got emails. I got the Biddle contact form submissions. And this is something that every week I don't ignore. I read every single one of them, but I don't read them on Biddle. So I just wanted to get a few things out there and maybe a couple thank yous. Brooke sent in last week, or was it the week before, I talked about how my test machine wasn't booting into the OS, and people had suggested that there were too many EFI entries. So it says here, you may have too many EFI Boot Manager entries, and there's a command line program called EFI Boot Manager that can manage and delete these entries. So I ended up installing that and looking at it for the boot entries, but there were no extra entries than what I was seeing in the boot menu. So that wasn't the issue, but I definitely appreciate, listening to the episode and hearing us talk about it, and then emailing in or using the contact form to say, hey, here's this. Let's see what else I got. New distro challenge. Luke James asked if we could try, get this, Gentoo, just plain Gentoo. He has it on his bucket list to try Gentoo, and okay, so I'm it's not on my bucket list. That's all I'm saying. It might take us long.
Gentoo is not that bad, Rocco.
Come on, it might take us longer than 2 weeks just to install it, Penguin. Come on.
It's a 2-week challenge.
If it's on that person's bucket list, then he can do it.
I think he wanted help. Not help with it. I think he wanted people to go along with him on that. So
it's not on my bucket list.
It's not on my bucket list.
That's what Serge.
I watched Zeb do that, and that was not
Well,
that's
actually,
what Serge is for.
So Dave, Dreaming Wolf, he's not here tonight, but he's in contact with Serge, and they're gonna do a Gentoo install, because if you heard his Linux Spotlight episode, he had installed Gentoo years ago and stuff like that. So yeah, but it's definitely not something that I'm gonna try, or there's no way I'm gonna put out there a Biddle challenge to do Gentoo. I think we would get like 3 people trying it, and I wouldn't be one of those.
I've got a Ryzen 9 3900X.
Yeah. Rocco, you don't like compiling your own kernels?
Now, well, I had posed the question to Dave in the Linux Spotlight about Gentoo itself, how years ago it was, you could customize each particular item on your system for your hardware, and that gave you a lot of extra that maybe a regular distro didn't give you. But in today's world, with the type of computers we have, how fast they are, the memory size we have, the CPU, the power that they have, is it at any advantage to install Gentoo nowadays. And, you know, I guess me and Dave kind of agreed that it is our opinion that it's probably not an advantage any longer. But Serge commented on that and said that, you know, he actually gave some good points of what, you know, reasons you would want to install Gentoo, and that's, you know, developers having different packages of the same package but different versions being installed on the computer. There was, you'll have to go read the comment that Serge made, but it was excellent that he gave other reasons of, you know, why you would want to do that.
I think that would be the retirement distro challenge. So when we retire, we got all the time in the world to try it.
All right. One of the regular guys, and I don't know if I saw him in here tonight yet or not. White Chocolate, he emailed in and said he wanted to add Q4OS to our distro challenge list. So there's another one that we can add to the list to try as a distro challenge. So, you know,
should we put the list in alphabetical order and just go through it? Or
well, I mean, like I said, I think it's okay. One, we all like to try distros, but we are still trying to have fun as well. And that's why I kind of steer away from something like Gentoo. And people might say, oh, well, you don't try anything hard. You know, look, no, I've never installed Gentoo, but I've done Arch installs on systems. So it's not like I try to steer away from hard distros, but it also has to be fun for everybody else too. Yep. And you have to have that balance of fun and trying and looking at things. And yeah, so that's just a little bit of a sneak peek into how I think about things. But
I kind of like that. That makes sense.
Have you ever thought of creating a poll?
Yeah.
Oh,
you know, Dan, I thought about creating a poll, but I don't know if there's a good way to combine, you know, as us in Zoom and the YouTube chat. You know, like you know, we could do it on Discourse, but not everybody goes to Discourse. We could do it in Telegram, but not everybody goes to Telegram. Just there's no simple, easy way to say here's a good representation of what people would vote for a distro challenge. So if you can think of something, if you can think of a way where we can combine all of that, you know, by all means, you know, I'd love to hear it. So
I'm sitting here and I'm at the Q4OS website, their homepage. And I'm kind of trying to figure out what makes this so much better or different than anything else that's out there. Seriously, I'm not being snarky or snide. I'm looking at it and it's like, well, it's saying all the same things. What makes it different? What is it doing? You know what I'm saying?
It's got the Trinity desktop and it's based on Debian, and the Trinity desktop's a little bit older and it's quite fast and speedy.
Okay.
But they have been doing a lot of work to it to include the standard Plasma as well. You can install that. So
yeah, because I don't see anything on the main on their main page that says anything about. It says it's fast and powerful, based on latest technologies. We're offering highly productive desktop environment. So I don't see, but it doesn't really say things like, well, it's based on Debian, blah, 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 because if I'm going to try a distro, I want to know what is the underlying, what's the underlying OS or whatever baseline that it's running on.
Looking at the homepage, it just looks like it's like a Windows 7 like clone attempt. It's really weird.
Yeah, it does.
It is. White Chocolate reached out to me, and I did it a couple weeks ago for him, and I never did Trinity before, and I was very surprised at how nice it looked and how well it was themed. And there's a lot of, like, when you're installing something, it looks like that window installer that, like, when you're installing an exe on Windows popping up. They made it very, very Windows friendly, but it was nice. I was surprised.
You know, I sometimes wonder when they make things look so very much Windows-like, and then people think, oh, well, it looks like Windows, so it must be like Windows. And then they go and they try and install something and don't understand why it doesn't work, and so on. I've always wondered about, is that really a good way to go? Or is it better to make something that people can look at and say, oh, I know where this is and I can click on this, and they know that it's not a Windows lookalike.
Right.
Yeah.
Not a Windows doppelganger.
Well, we're gonna actually get into some of that later in one of our
Okay.
topics, Barb, about
Okay.
Windows 7 coming to an end, and
I liked Windows 7 for when I had to use it.
Yep. So keep those thoughts. Hey, look, we mentioned Solus, and there's James.
It's a car.
Wait a second. It's a disembodied head.
James, what's up,
Gee,
brother?
who used to do that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Steve, who would do that? Something like that.
So
That's ridiculous.
apparently
It's
this
like
is
so weird.
It is weird. I forgot that I played with this setting in Zoom, and
Oh, it's
here
a
I
Zoom
am.
setting?
Yeah, you can do this in Zoom.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The remove your head button.
Okay,
Use
I
my
expect
head
to
button.
get
But
latest version.
I would. Okay, so I know that James, your vote's going to be Solus. I just know that. So we're just going to move on. All right. Steven, let me get your thoughts on what do you think about the distro challenge? Maybe not just what we should try, but the idea of how we go about trying these. Steven.
Oh, hello. Sorry, I thought I was muted. That I wasn't muted, and then I was muted again. And okay, I'm back. All right. I would say looking at the say it was K4OS with the Trinity desktop. To me, that would be interesting because it's something different. I mean, we look at a lot of KDE distros, a lot of GNOME distros, a lot of distros that use very similar setups and packages and things. Something like Trinity, which I've never tried before, and I've rather heard of Q4OS. That sounds interesting to me.
Okay. Esnix, I'd love to get your thoughts on it, on what, anything on what we've just been talking about.
Well, Trinity Desktop, I'm not sure if everyone knows, it's really a continuation of the KDE 3 series.
Yep.
So it's not meant to be a Windows lookalike per se. I mean, it does have a lot of similarities, but it's really a hearkening back to what KDE used to be before 4.0 came out. And Q4OS, I find very slick distro. They have a lot of themes you can apply to the old KDE Trinity desktop, and it's just super slick. So it's a good choice for older machines.
Well, what do
I'm
you think
curious-
about these other suggestions like, Nitrix or Tramjaro or...
Nitrix I've never really played with. Tramjaro, I just briefly looked at their website, and I wasn't sure exactly what the point of their distro was. They talk about free trade, but I found the definition they're using didn't really make sense to me. So I'm not really sure what their customization of Manjaro brings to the table.
Okay.
Maybe I have to use it to find out. One thing I noticed looking at the discourse list of distributions is I didn't see Void listed there. Has Void come up as a suggestion in the past?
It has come up as a suggestion in the past. It's not on this specific list, but it has. But I definitely will add it to the list.
Yeah, that's one distribution that for people who, for one reason or another want to avoid System D or just play with something a bit different. Very interesting distro.
If anyone does go the Void route, I'd like to point out that the Void builds, the official builds for ISOs, are really, really old. So most hardware is just not going to work.
That's a
There's
problem with their website.
Yeah, there's a website, voidbuilds.xyz. It's actually maintained by a member of the BDL community that I'll have to grab the handle. but they do daily builds of the Void ISOs, so hardware support should be there.
The Void ISOs, when you click on their download link on their website, leads you to a 2018 list of ISOs.
Yeah.
If you go up a directory in their file server, you can find a much more current folder dated, I believe, November of 2019.
Okay. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, just use the double dots to go up a directory when you're at their FTP site.
Has that been reported yet? Because like just on a user level, like you click on download and that's the only thing that shows up.
I know you're led to a very old download.
Okay.
Whoever's running their website just isn't keeping up on that basic link. But it is there, and the new I find they only spin a new ISO once a year.
Ooh.
And since it's a rolling release, you're expected just to update it once you install it. So
yeah, it's just the installing.
And I've
part
never
that's
had
difficult.
a problem updating Void. So
all right, so we have to make a decision, and I'm just going to throw a couple out there. We're going to boil a couple up and see what everybody's thoughts are on trying it out. Well, obviously, Solus has to be put up in that list. Nitrix, Manjaro, and Arch Labs. So those are the 4 choices we need to choose from, just to boil it down so we can make a decision. What are you guys' thoughts?
To clarify on Nitrix, are we saying the development version?
Either the development version or the Manjaro version. I think Nitrix is pretty interesting in what they're trying to do, but it may be difficult to install. We may have issues, but that's also part of the process. So, and that's why we have a Telegram group and we can help each other out. And so, any other thoughts on those 4?
I know
I'd
tried Arch.
probably go Solus.
I'd go Solus.
I'm thinking Solus myself, to be honest.
Oh my.
I
Solus
don't
is
want
well
to be
over
that
here.
guy, but
You want to be that guy, right? James,
When was the last time we did Solus?
what did you say? April of last year? March
last year.
March last year.
March 2019.
a bit over 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I want to
Wow, 9 months
experience
ago.
the fact. I want to experience the fact that it's installed before you even put your name and everything.
Me too.
We should ask what Tony's got installed. That's what we should ask.
Tony, what out of those 4, which one do you have installed already?
I think I probably got 3 of the 4
Oh my
already downloaded.
gosh.
Don't you?
All right, so we're trying to narrow it down, Tony. Which one don't you have installed yet?
I can't remember.
Okay, all right. James, what do you think?
Red Hat 8.1.
But I like that. Let's do Red Hat.
Daniel?
I'm actually kind of interested in Nitrix.
Okay. Yep. All right. I should have added Allie's version to the mix, but I didn't. Jason, what'd you say?
I'm going to go with Solus.
Dan?
I'm going to go with Solus too.
Oh my gosh. Peter, you're
Just because I have Mint, Spider, and Telegram to help me with it all the time.
So I think that's a unanimous vote that we all would like to try Solus. The next question is, do we narrow it down to just the Plasma version, or do we keep it to whatever Solus version you want to install?
Whatever version you want.
to install. Whatever version.
My question is, has there been a new release of the other versions?
Yes.
Oh, kind of, sort of, yeah. I mean, the GNOME stack was upgraded. Budgie was upgraded.
System D.
Yeah, System D. Big changes there. That happened last week.
Yeah.
The Plasma, I've got it running on a VM, and even on a VM, it's super snappy. So I'm actually thinking. So I've been a GNOME user for a long time, and actually thinking about switching to Plasma on this laptop that I'm on right now, because it's nice, and I'm really kind of tired of GNOME and how much RAM it uses. So
I want to see Budgie done right.
It's gonna be hard pressed to pull me away from Pop OS. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Pop OS. That's nice.
I have a theory on why GNOME uses so much RAM. It's because the toes between the feet are like RAM slots, and it just
it's is it Ram Jam? Is that what it is? Like Toe Jam?
And his conversation just went downhill. Holy mackerel!
Where are the kids?
All right, so we'll leave it at whatever Solus you want to try. I am definitely going to try the Plasma version, and I hope you guys too, because that's the major one that's everybody's.
Is that the one
about.
they really put like the most effort into for 4.1?
It's a brand new one.
I don't know if you could say they put. I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the Solus
brand?
team, but like I wouldn't say they put more effort into this than they did any others.
Budgie's a flagship, but all of them got upgraded. It's 4.1 across the board.
Right.
Yeah. So, but what is it with the KDE Plasma version?
It's just been a long, hard road for the team, and they finally got it released and feel like it's stable.
So it really hasn't been released before with that.
Right.
Yeah, this is new.
Okay.
There was a beta ISO you could download and you could try it out, but it wasn't it wasn't released as a regular ISO.
Yeah.
I touched on this a bit in the video, but like kind of one of the things that's really exciting to me about this is currently one of the only distros available right now with proper support for brand new AMD graphics cards. Like I hear people say the experience with AMD on Linux is great, but like if I boot up Ubuntu, even the latest version with a 5700 XT, like it's a terrible experience. I have better luck plugging in a 2080 Ti and it automatically takes care of everything. So this release of Solus, boom, everything works right out of the box because it's got a recent kernel in the ISO. You have that hardware support you need, not only for new AMD GPUs, but also CPUs. It supports the 3000 series.
What version of the kernel are they using?
This is 5.4.x, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but remember me talking about the menu that Ubuntu Budgie had made for not a replacement, but as an added menu. They took the elementary menu and forked it to work with Ubuntu Budgie. And there was one of the guys that tried to get it installed on Solus and did. So that is possible if you want to try that this week. I'm just saying.
Absolute heresy.
I am not a big fan of the Budgie menu. Sorry.
I used to like it more when it was like the version that everyone else hated. It's so weird. I was the opposite.
I've always loved it.
That like auto sorting thing that it used to do, and everybody was like, please make it stop. I was like, give me more.
But see, Peter, this menu that Ubuntu Budgie is working on, it makes the Budgie desktop complete. It puts it as a modern looking desktop, like everything else in Budgie.
The word modern gets too overused.
You're right, but it is true when it's needed to be used. So everything else in Budgie looks like a nice modern desktop, except for the menu. And I think that menu makes that happen.
I made 2 videos about that during the week, Rocco.
You did. And what was your determination, Colin?
I like it. And some of the things that they plan on doing with it, it should be quite good as well. So they're actively working on it. You can search URLs through the menu. They're planning on if they can get what was it called, an API, I think, connected to the GNOME software. You'll be able to install applications on a search within the menu as well. That's what their plan is. So and because I made 2 videos because I did such a simple look at it on the first one. And there were so many things highlighted to me that I missed. I thought I'd better make a second one because I didn't really look too far into it.
What's the package manager for Solus? How do you get your software?
EO package.
Yep, EO package.
They have a graphical package manager, but you can use EO package from the EOPKG.
Now, how many of us use the graphical package manager?
I do sometimes.
I do
for the basics.
I do.
When I don't feel like trying to figure out what I need, I just go to the package, the graphical
So
one.
one of the
pure laziness on my
downsides
part.
to EO package right now is I don't know if you guys ever use like the asterisks in apt to like just automatically include everything with it doesn't work in EO package right now. So the graphical manager is actually a way easier way to get around that. So comes in
Wow,
handy.
DT actually posted the sudo to get your package.
Well, I don't know, Tony. I think DT has Solus installed already, so he might be ahead of you, dude. Just saying.
But
All right. Go ahead.
The important question is, does Tony have it installed yet? Oh, he's not here.
Yeah, he's here.
Those ears are
Oh, where is he? Oh, there he is.
He's
He's
up
at the top. I'm sorry. He's working on it. I can tell feverishly.
Well, anyway.
I guess I have one question with Solus before we go on to something else. Did they ever make it so that with the their software center, their whatever, you can do what you can do in Ubuntu Mate, which is check off a whole bunch of them and then just have them bulk install them?
I think it was one at a time.
Huh?
We'll have to see how it updates, but yeah, it used to be just one at a time.
Yeah, and then at least with Ubuntu, you can go and use Synaptic and basically do the same thing.
So sometime back, the team was working on a whole new software center, and that may be something that they do. I haven't even used it since I upgraded. I haven't done it yet.
It is still one at a time, but the good thing is it's really, really fast. Like I noticed it's a little faster than normal, and I don't know if that's just me.
I think it's
because
just you, Chicken.
Yeah. Last time I used it, it was on slightly older hardware. So
Stickle or Peter, do you know if they've done anything with hybrid graphics? Because that was a bit of a sore spot for me.
I have no clue.
Hold on. Yes, there is a script that someone wrote. It is a Python script. I'm using it on this laptop right now, and I'm in Intel mode right now. And it works. It works really well.
Where can people
granted,
find
it's
that,
command
James?
line. You have to crack open the command line.
I don't
and
mind
use
that. I don't mind
but
that.
it works perfectly on well, I've got it on GNOME. I've tested it on Mate and on Budgie. I have not tested it on KDE.
Is it like a switcher?
Yeah, basically. Okay. You do have to log out and log back in or reboot, but it does work.
Okay.
Where can we find that script?
GitHub. I'll post it in the chat.
Okay. All right. So I do get another question before we go about Solus, because I don't remember off the top of my head. Software Center, obviously, for your software. Is there snaps, Flatpaks, anything like that?
Yep.
Support?
Yes. Both snaps and Flatpaks are supported. Not in the Software Center, but they are part of the system.
Okay.
So good stuff.
And what about app images? Because there are a couple things that I use.
Yeah.
They only
just work.
Okay.
I just use Blend and Etcher right now.
Okay.
So Vince, are you back from lunch?
Priorities, Vince. Priorities.
I worked some of my magic and managed to make it back in time.
Nice. I love it. You're not going to sleep on the couch tonight, are you?
No, we'll see. I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. So we are trying Solus. What is it? 4.1? Is that what it is? 4.1 for the next 2 weeks. And of course, you see Tony has it installed already. Beats me every time. And that's our distro challenge for the next 2 weeks. So what we're going to do is we're going to try it out. If you guys have any problems, please join in the Telegram group and ask questions and help people out, because, you know, you may be running into an issue that you may think, well, it's just me, but there may be many other people that have that issue that didn't say anything. So the more you speak up in Telegram with the issues you have, the more we can help out, solve those, and everybody will benefit from that during the 2 weeks of testing. So we will be back next week talking about Solus and our initial thoughts.
If you run into problems, just ping me. I'll get my grubby mitts all over them.
All right, there's a couple topics that I wanted to bring up, and
Rocco, I'll just say.
Go ahead, dude.
I said, Rocco, I'll just say I beat Tony in installing it because I installed it this morning.
Okay, dig it. All right.
That doesn't
That's
count.
cheating.
Yes.
Well, we'll start out with what you were talking about, Barb, and it's slightly different than what you were talking about with Windows 7 and it being end of life. And the other day, I guess Jay from Learn Linux TV made a video about we shouldn't be blanket statement saying to everybody just install Linux after Windows 7. And there was a couple qualifiers to that. And I kind of agreed, but kind of didn't agree with everything he was saying. But what I want to bring up, what I want everybody to give their thoughts on is how do we approach this whole situation with Windows 7? And I know my thoughts on it, but I want to hear everybody else's thoughts about, do you go out and push Linux to people, or do you let them find Linux on their own? So, Eric, start it out.
I want to bring up one more point just to sort of preface this. I have a Windows 7 laptop that I tried to upgrade to Windows 10, and it does not work. The drivers aren't there, and it just does not run Windows 10. So the blanket statement of that everybody that has a Windows 7 computer can upgrade to Windows 10 is not correct. And so there are some people that will literally be stranded by this, who will either have a system that they will run in an insecure way, or they'll have to look for an alternative. Now, that's going to be probably maybe an edge case, not as many people, but given how many people hold on to systems if they keep running, I think that's a legitimate thing, that if maybe we say can't upgrade to Windows 10, if that's something that is a way to sort of reach out to those people. But in terms of the idea that everybody should switch from Windows 7 to Windows 10, I mean, I think that's a naive sort of...
Windows 8.1 is still an option too.
I think you can, Eric. You can it would have to be a fresh install, but you can use the install key from Windows 7. Somebody said.
No, you could.
Yes,
it wasn't the key. It was the hardware column. The laptop hardware wouldn't work on Windows 10.
I know he's
that's upgrade. That's upgrading from Windows 7.
No, that was a fresh install.
A fresh install? Oh, sorry, I misunderstood.
They don't have drivers. This is older hardware that they have not written Windows 10 drivers for, and the company will not write them. So
okay,
yeah.
Vash, go ahead.
Eric. Yeah. Vash, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So one thing I was going to say is what you have to keep in mind is I don't even know how many of these computers can really run Windows 10 effectively at this point, because I mean, we've been doing upgrades to our machines at work for new features. And so that, aside from just being a lot of time, like I am now running out of memory. And I'm a person that I open a bunch of stuff and I keep it open throughout the day because I never know what I'm going back into. But it's not like I'm going and doing a lot of like heavy lifting. This is like Firefox and, a SQL developer window and stuff like that. This is not something where ultimately I'm using very resource intensive stuff, but I'm still running out of memory. And I think this thing has, I don't remember if it has 8 or 16 gigs, but my point is at the time that these machines were made, like unless it was a flying machine, I don't know that most of them can run Windows 10 effectively. That's one thing to consider. The other thing I would say is that a lot of these people probably haven't really thought about what an OS even is. So this is going to be one of the few chances I think you actually get to even suggest that, hey, there's actually another, option out there.
But haven't there also been people who had Windows 10 and it was, let's say, an older system. I'm not saying old, but they went through and they went from 7 to 8 to 10. And then when they tried to do, more recently another update, it wouldn't do it because the hardware was no longer supported. One piece or whatever, something wasn't supported anymore. Isn't that also happening?
I don't know.
I haven't heard about that.
So it's not going to upgrade components that it actually just can't. Other patches still go through. You just don't get like full build updates. You get security patches, things like that, which I guess is better than nothing, but it's better than having like your audio device bricked because it tries to bring in new audio systems and then it just doesn't work.
Well, we're not going to go around to each person, so you guys jump in any way you can. Esnick, Steve, James, all you guys just jump in and talk because people
Well,
are just...
I know I posted my last Sunday stream in Facebook trying to stir up some excitement. And my cousin reached out to me, and she's got an old Vista computer, wondering if I can do anything to help her. And then when I said, yeah, and I said, well, if you can give me the specs on the computer and what you got in there. And it was like, well, not really comfortable with it. I have to be in a certain mindset to look at it. So I'll let you know. And I said, I'm here if you need me.
Nice.
I tend to think, Rocco, that my opinion on this is if Windows 7 users are still on Windows 7 now by end of life, and they can't handle just changing to Windows 10, which is familiar to them already, what hope have most of those got coming to Linux if they can't even handle updating to Windows 10? So
well, I don't know if it's a can't handle issue, Colin.
Just a mindset thing.
It just may be a
Rocco?
I got other things I got to do type thing. I mean, what do you think?
Maybe, but I don't think they're tinkerers. But if they're a tinkerer, then they might have the mindset of change, right? I think.
Yeah, Colin, you're definitely right. There are a lot of people who just are very averse to change, period. And so they probably shouldn't even be part of this discussion. But like my mom, she's been running Linux for 6 or 7 years, and she prefers it over Windows, and she had Windows before. And, she was having a lot of problems with it, and I got her switched over, and she's happy. Dad, same situation. They're both grandparents, and, they both use Linux, and they have been for some time now.
But let me ask you, James.
My dad took 7 years to upgrade his DSL to, something AT&T offered. It was just it took him 7 years to make a decision to upgrade. So he's one of those people that are very averse to change, but he finally did, and he's very happy with it.
But James, they're not really tinkerers, right? They're just users who maybe not.
So I would think not, but my mom definitely not. She's like, the internet quit working. Well, what's wrong? Well, I can't get on Facebook. That's her. But Dad has a TomTom, right? Who in the heck still uses those? But he got online and learned how to call wine and push map upgrades on his own through the terminal. He got in there and started messing around. I was really proud of him for doing that.
Nice.
So I guess it just depends on the need and what someone's needs are. My grandfather, he also made the switch. He was a Mac user and made the switch to Ubuntu and was like, this is how operating systems should be. He was,
that's an easier switch to do, to go from Mac to Ubuntu or Mac to Linux than it is to go from Windows.
That's probably true.
No, and being a Mac user, it is much easier switch for people.
Well, your point about them they could get used to it and they actually found it to be a better experience. I firmly believe that if every one of us could just go grab someone by the hand and say, let's look at this and actually have them use it. And I really do think a lot of people would say, yeah, that's actually pretty nice. I like how that works.
You just have to step past
that hurdle of right, Shickle. It's that, how do you get someone to that point? Because they're not going to find it on their own. They're not going to take that initiative. Nate and I were talking about, Nate noticed that there was an uptick in hardware sales, at a certain point recently. And I said, well, that's not people buying more computers just because they want a computer. That's people upgrading because their old computers aren't going to run anymore. Right. And I think that's probably what we're going to see a lot of here is the people with a computer. I posted a picture of my doctor's office. There was a laptop that said, your support is now up. And it's a new type of blue screen for Windows. I was really excited by that. But what they're going to do, I bet you, is to just go get a new laptop.
Yep.
So imagine the amount of good computers that are going to get thrown away because of this.
Well, so that's the biggest thing that I think is going to happen with the Windows 7 end of life is how many people are going to actually know that are not tinkers, they're not everyday, geeks or whatever you want to call it. They're just the everyday user that just sits down there and checks their Facebook, checks their Instagram. They're not going to know what that really means when they say end of life. A lot of people are probably going to continue on and just continue to use it until it stops working because they don't know any better. Or they're going to be like, well, okay, this is broken. I guess I'll just go, like you were just saying, Eric, was I'm just going to go get a new one, then what they'll do is they'll either take the other one, throw it in the closet, or throw it away, or whatever, recycle it somehow or something. But with me, like I work for Bank of America in their IT department, and the sheer amount of chaos that's going to be happening now is because a lot of people are still on the bank itself is slowly rolling to Windows 10, and they are currently still on Windows 7. I think they have like something like 18,000 different computers, something like that, that are still have to be rolled over.
Are they going to buy that extended support, you think?
I have no idea what they're going to do.
Well,
all I know is
so.
that we get the call, that says I personally have been out of work for a few weeks for health reasons, but my colleagues were telling me they've been getting these calls that they have, people have seen that end of life thing on their work computers, and because they haven't gotten the green light to be upgraded to Windows 10 yet. So it's kind of lit a fire underneath the deployment team to get that going. But anyway, back to the regular users, they just don't know. I mean, they're not going to know to go to Linux. They're not going to know to go to Windows 10. They're not going to know to go to whatever they option they think may be out there. They just don't know.
And the other thing is that when they see end of life, they're going to think, oh, it's going to die, but then it doesn't. Yeah. It keeps going, and they're going to say, oh, okay, so I'm okay. I can keep going. And they don't even consider, oh, well, maybe I'm not getting security upgrade. They don't know. They don't even know that. They are totally.
They probably don't even do the updates themselves. They probably still have it on auto update or whatever. Yeah. With my Windows machine, I went in through these services and turned all that crap off, and I was like, okay, listen, I'm going to go in and do it when I want to do it. That way, my stuff doesn't get bricked. With all the issues that Windows had back in the day, but it's
well, I think the bigger question is not whether or not how they're going to react to it, but how do we as a community approach it? I think that's the question I'm going for.
Well,
hey Rocco, I would say that this is maybe a little bit blasphemous, but the one way to really reach a lot of people in a very inexpensive way is like Facebook ads. Most of these people who don't know much about computers are hanging out on Facebook, and we used to we had a blog that we would promote on Facebook, and we would be able to reach between 1,000 and 1,500 people with like a $5 advertising budget, like for a 1 week period. And I mean, not that we want to give our money to Facebook, but it's an easy, inexpensive way to reach people who you wouldn't otherwise be able to.
Well, I think the only problem with that that I see is who would actually be reaching out. Would we leave it up to a company like Ubuntu, or would we leave it up to the community itself, or how would we go about that?
Well,
sure. I just it's something that I think it's an interesting idea, but yeah, obviously there would be logistics that have to be worked out.
Yep.
My answer to that would be, before somebody goes and installs, or if they're going to try and install Windows 10, they must stop and read the end user's agreement that comes with it. That right in there is going to tell you a lot of information. It's going to give you a lot of negative feelings.
But that's not going to happen, Dan.
Yeah,
it's a nice thing to say, but it's not. It's not going to happen.
Thing you have to recommend to people I'm going to switch to Windows 10. Well, make sure you read the end user license agreement so you know what you're signing on to.
That'd be like a 2-week biddle challenge, wouldn't it?
It'd be like a lifetime challenge.
I wouldn't be here today if I didn't do that.
Honestly, people aren't going to do that.
I bet you if you had someone and you told them either read the Windows 10 end user license agreement or switch to Linux, they'd probably choose to switch to Linux instead because of how little they have to read in exchange.
You don't even have to read the whole thing. About 3 paragraphs in, you're already shut down.
All right, I get that the issue is if you're too pushy, it might make us sound like zealots, and that might send the wrong message.
Yes.
That's the problem. But it's still, I don't think should still stop us from raising awareness and actually offering a hand if someone is showing even the slightest bit of interest. Like Eric says, that hand holding a little bit, maybe offering to actually help them with the install. I think that'd be something that we could all be doing. And to give my own example, I gave my mum Linux Mint back in October, and since then I've had like literally 0 support calls, nothing at all. And whereas back in Windows 7, I was like, I mean, computer's slow. It's not working. What can I do wrong? What have I been doing wrong? And also over the Christmas break, I went and pushed out Linux Mint onto about half a dozen computers at work as well. And other than some font scaling issues, again, I've had no issues with those users too. So the experience can be quite good, and machines have been shown to be able to run at Linux very, very well. It's just getting over that hurdle.
Vince, was this a sanctioned move at work?
Well, I'm one of the business partners, so I can do whatever I like.
You can do whatever you want then. That's awesome. I like that.
That's how you're able to
He has
be
a
on
pool.
the streams in the middle of the day. Oh, now I understand.
Okay, Shickle, go ahead.
So I have kind of like a multi-leveled approach to like how and when I think it's okay to approach this kind of situation. So I don't particularly believe in I guess what I would call shilling Linux. Like I wouldn't just go out there and be like, here's Linux, switch to Linux, you need Linux. Hey, you out there, you using a computer? Yes, you switch to Linux. Like, I just feel like that is not really serving any good purpose. It really seems just like a popularity contest. Like, we just want more users. Like, that just feels crummy to me. And I can honestly say that, like, looking at it from the outside, it feels crummy having that kind of approach put on you as well. And the other thing is that I think that our attention that we give Linux, the promotion we give of it, should be based around the good things about it, the benefits it has, rather than kind of like pitting it against things and kind of using it to shoot other things down. That also not only makes people feel targeted because now it's like whatever they're using isn't good enough or things like that. It also doesn't really highlight the positive aspects of your OS. Like, if it can't stand on its own with the good things about it and it needs to rely on the negatives of another OS in order to be promoted, it's not worth promoting. And then the third level to that, and my final level, is like offer help, which I think it was mentioned earlier, like a little bit of hand holding can go a long way. They should be interested in coming to you in the same way that you're interested in coming to them. If it's just like a one-sided approach, you've already lost. You're not on the right track.
That's some good points there, Chicken. But I just want to tell you from my experience, I've got quite a few videos on how to dual boot Windows and Ubuntu. Now, they've become very active lately, and I've been trying to help people in chat, and I think there's been a couple that have gone pear-shaped big time. Now, I'll give you... it's true. And the problem is these people come over, they don't give you no information. You don't know how they've installed the computer. I have installed many Linux Mints, people, family, work, colleagues, whatever, never had 0 issues because I've physically got that laptop and I know how to install it properly, how to get it up and running, and I don't hear word from anybody. But when it's online and you're trying to help people, it's very hard to extract what information you need and how they've installed it. Did they install it via EFI, the same as Windows? Did they not? They can't even see an unallocated disk when they start Ubuntu. I don't know why that's the case. And most people that watch it say, thanks very much, helped me a lot. And some people just can't even see an unallocated disk on a live Ubuntu USB. So I don't know. It's very hard to hold people's hands on a lot of occasions when it comes to this.
Definitely online.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like a vulture about this. I wait. I'm an opportunist, and I wait for someone to have a horrible, horrible problem, and I just very calmly say, there's this other operating system that you should really know about, and speak very softly to them and very calmly, and then suck them in, and then the next thing you know, they're happy and they brag about their new computer that they just love. So I would say that for us in evangelizing Linux, because I am openly talking to people about what I like about this operating system, is one, they got to know that you're passionate about it. People really dig that. But two, they have to know that you are listening to their needs, right? And that sounds really cheesy, but it's true. So when you're talking to someone about making the switch, you have to ask them those questions that we don't have answers for. Like, are you using Photoshop?
Right.
There's no replacement. I don't care. You can talk about GIMP and everything. Yeah, it's great, but it's not Photoshop. And some video editing software that we just don't have. So you have to talk to them on that level. But if they're the average user, we've got them all day long. We've got what they need here. And once they see it, you show them your own hardware. Like, I did this. I didn't know anything about computers when I started this, and here I am today. I mean, they know you, and they can see that you were able to do it, and you're willing to help them.
Well,
I mean, that goes a long way.
I think the frustrating part for me is like Jason Evangelo, I think, tweeted out a poll of what we should be. I think it was Jason, about what we should be calling it. Is it a distro? Is it an OS, or is it a platform? Or I think it was just, is it an OS or distro? And other people were saying it's a platform. We can't even agree on what we should call it. And I think that's
I liked your comment. I liked your comment on Twitter. You felt like it should be, for the sake of their understanding, it should be called an operating system, and I absolutely agree. It doesn't matter
that
how
they
we
understand.
Right. You have to speak to them in their terms, and so you call it an operating system because that is what it is. It is an OS. So on a very broad general.
Even if it like technically isn't an OS, you could make a case that it's a platform. You could make a case it's a distro. Just for the fact that when you're talking to somebody that doesn't understand or even care whether it's a platform or not, you're going to have better success if you just call it an operating system, because that's what they understand it to be.
Yep.
Exactly.
The other thing too I do is I ask them to please just give it a 2-week shot. Just 2 weeks. And typically I've only had one, and it was my brother. It was because he needed Photoshop. He was the first time, I tried, getting him to get on to GIMP, and he's just like, no, it's just not going to happen.
That's where dual booting comes in, though, because if you give them the choice where they actually can get back to what they know. So like they run into that situation, like someone had posted, Jason, you posted about being a full-time Linux user, and I had written back to you and said, great, go for it, but don't just jump in all the way, because if you have something where it's frustrating you because you can't figure it out and you just need to get something done, go back and do it, and then come back, and maybe you'll figure it out later. But if you just make people use something they're not used to, so I think that's where dual booting really comes in, and nobody understands the concept of dual booting. And if you can just say, look, you can have two completely separate operating systems on your computer, and when you boot up, you turn it on, you have the choice. And so if anything happens in one of them, you can just shut it down and come back and pick the other one. And it's like,
and I think if they have multiple computers and like they use one more than the other, if that other one, they use it just like from time to time, have them install Linux on that computer, because that way they're exposed to it. But if they have some issue with it where it gets on their nerves, they don't have to use it. But if they start liking it, it's like planting that little seed in the back of their head, like, this other computer that I don't use all the time, I'm actually starting to like it more because I installed this on it. Why don't I install it on my main computer too?
I've been batting around this idea, and it's kind of a pipe dream at this point, and that is to spin up a Windows machine and just have everybody be able to RDP to it using Ramina, and say, if you need your Windows, here you go, just RDP into this thing, you're good to go. I don't know, whatever. I'll just shut up now.
Well, I think we also need to look at where we send people for, like, where do you send people, new users, when they have questions about Linux? So, Eric, where do you send somebody? Do you foster them, or do you take them under your wing yourself, or do you send them somewhere specific?
If I can personally help them with a specific question, then I will. If they're looking for general information, if I can explain it, I will. The problem with doing things on a forum or doing things on Telegram and things like that is it's just a lot for someone to have to type out and kind of get the meaning across. So for some people, I've just said, can we just jump on something voice chat? Can I call you? Like, let's just have a 15-minute conversation about this, and that it'll hopefully I can explain something, right? Whatever the question is. I'm actually working on some stuff right now about like how can I put out just some blanket information about what is Linux, why are there so many choices, what's a desktop environment, that kind of stuff, just so to familiarize people with what these terms mean, and then what are the choices available, and then what kind of makes sense for just random users, right? And so you've heard a lot of us where we're talking about the desktop switching, right? The layout switching and some of these ways that you can kind of ease people in. And the more I see these things, the more encouraging it is for me to say to someone, if I talk to you and I talk to you and understand who you are as a person, what you're doing with your computer, like you said, with your brother that needs Photoshop, once you get to that point in the conversation, then you can kind of say, look, you're right. That's probably something that's going to hold you back. So maybe you dual boot and you have a Windows environment where you can do those things. And if you want to use Linux, you can always come back into it. Or maybe it's just not going to work for you. And that's okay. It doesn't have to work for you.
Yep.
But if you're just like someone who's just using a computer in a normal, well, not normal, in a sort of general way, then all of those barriers that used to be there 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they're not there anymore. And so most people can just use a computer with Linux and be perfectly happy with it. And in some cases with those layout switches and things like that, not even really see that much of a difference, because they're going to be using Chrome or Firefox or whatever browser they use. They're going to be using the tools that they normally use anyway. There's really not going to be a lot of difference. So anyway, so it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. It's a very difficult balance between evangelizing and supporting and educating and informing without making it seem like you have a huge bias. And I think that's the most important thing that any of us can do, is never, ever look down on someone for making a choice that makes sense for them personally.
Yep.
And second of all, give them the information without overwhelming them. Talk to them, understand who they are, what they need out of a computer, and then hopefully you can help them make that decision, because a lot of us have this information and a lot of us can relay it to people. It's just really the biggest thing. The trickiest thing is, who do they find when they come looking for that question? Whether it's operating system, however it is they're looking, Windows 7 alternative, however they're trying to get to that information, hopefully who they find is someone who's giving them that type of information, and not someone who's a talking head, who's just saying things, or not someone who is overzealous, or not so, what I mean? I hopefully they can sort of find that right community, find that right information. And if any of us here can be a part of that and help those people, I think that is what makes the difference.
The first thing I do after I install an operating system for someone is I install something like TeamViewer. It's a very first step I make, because I know they're going to need help with something. And that has been a lifesaver for me, because trying to talk someone through a problem over the phone is redonkulous. And second, Eric, my brother and I are no longer on speaking terms. I'm just kidding. No, it's not true.
Yeah,
I've
definitely agree with the team viewer thing there. Like I said, I work for Bank of America, so a lot of our stuff is over the phone. So we have to do a lot of remote desktop and take control and do all the stuff for them, because a lot of the locations are actually bank locations. So we actually have to remote into bank systems and fix their stuff.
Yeah, I
would second TeamViewer as well.
Well, I'll throw AnyDesk out there as an alternative to TeamViewer. For what it's worth.
My father is very tech illiterate, and I remember when I was growing up, he got viruses all the time on whatever the Windows version on the desktop was. He, a year or two ago, decided to get a new laptop. So knowing he was tech illiterate and that most of what he did was in the browser or a word processor. I kind of forced him into getting Linux. I gave him Linux Mint, and I configured it specifically to look a lot like Windows 95, so he felt nice at home and he could figure out what to do. And I think I got 2 tech support calls from him. And for both of them, I had installed TeamViewer on his laptop, and I was able to just remote in, do whatever it is he needed me to do, and he was good. And he has not got a virus since then. He's perfectly fine.
Well, I'm glad it worked out for you, Thomas, but I don't suggest everybody force people into Linux. Just saying.
Yeah.
Rocco, your dad's using Mint too, right?
No, my dad is right now on Peppermint.
Oh, okay.
He switched to Linux, geez, a while ago, years ago. I don't remember he kind of followed me. Like I was using Linux probably just a little bit before he was, but that was more to test things out. Because I would talk to him about it, and I would say, hey, there's this new thing out there, and, they got this new version of this, and it installs correctly, and everything's working, and he would say, well, let me know when you know that it's working, and I'll look at it. And so after I was able to successfully run Linux for a while, then I switched him over, and he's been on it ever since. He wanted off Windows as soon as he could get. Although he's not a tinkerer, he's not a guy that's going to go in and, I won't say that. He wants things specific. He wants things in a specific area. Like he would like his menu where he wants it. He wants his taskbar where he wants it. And he wants to be able to switch that stuff. But he's not just, once that's done, he's not going to go and tinker with everything in the distro itself. So he's perfectly happy on Peppermint right now. Esnix, you've been awful quiet, dude. What are your thoughts on all of this?
I've been trying to break in, but I just haven't found a little second of silence. So.
You just have to do it, dude.
Sorry,
you just have to interrupt.
I guess I do. I'm not comfortable enough yet to do that. So
Okay.
Thank you, Rocco, for inviting me in again. I think I'm a bit unlike some of the folks in here in that I don't push Linux to anyone. If someone asks me what I use, I tell them what I use and why. If they have problems with Windows, I try to help them solve those problems in Windows. I don't jump to recommending Linux as a solution to people who don't express at least an interest when I say, oh, I use Linux. I don't want that battle of my time, put into someone's system that I think eventually they're going to get frustrated because it's not Windows. Now, I've tried switching parents, and that's been no success. So, friends and coworkers, I don't try to switch them. I just promote what I use and why, and let them, live their life the way they want to live. Now, with Windows 7 going end of life, I don't think dual booting is really an option at this point. If you're trying to get someone comfortable with Linux yet still keep them on Windows, you sort of have to switch them over to at least 8.1 so they're secure, or as secure as it can be. I think that's about where I fit into this discussion here.
Well, let me ask you, everybody, is it bad to, like, say we talk that scenario where you have Photoshop, you have this one program. If that's a situation where that's the only program they're going to use, and is it bad to keep them on Windows 7, even though it's at end of life, just to boot into Windows 7 to do that one thing in Photoshop and then boot out of it?
Or to even potentially run Windows 10. Well, I don't know how Photoshop runs as a virtual.
I would say it depends on whether or not you have Windows 7 configured to get on the internet. If it is configured to get on the internet, no. I don't care what you're doing with it. If it can get on the internet at this point, just don't. Upgrade it to at least Windows 8. Even if you hit more than, I don't care what you hate it more than, just don't use Windows 7. If you have it configured though to where like the computer's capable of getting on the internet because there's Wi-Fi available and it has a Wi-Fi card, or you have an Ethernet cable plugged in, and you just configure Windows 7 not to be able to get on the internet, but you can on Linux, and you just dual boot like that, do whatever you need to in Windows 7, like Photoshop, don't do anything else, and then you just boot back into Linux to do basically everything else, I see no issue with it. Because at that point, you're not having nearly as many security issues.
I don't think there's a single solution. Let's put it that way. I think it's probably going to vary. And I think we have a lot of tools available in Linux to handle different situations. So, and I think that's what this comes down to in a lot of cases is if someone is not willing to maybe try some different things, then you're probably not going to have a good experience with,
Right.
There's going to be someone who wants either a new laptop or something, and that's fine. Good. I mean, if that's what they want, then so be it. But for the people that look at it as an opportunity to maybe try something else, then if they're working with someone that has some working knowledge of this stuff, then you can come up with different, like Thomas, maybe in your case, you're right. Someone that just needs to get into that box to do like a very specific thing, fine. Disconnect it from the internet, move on, and maybe over time there's a better solution.
Well, I kind of follow basically what Esnix, you said about, I don't promote Linux to, although I'm here and we talk about Linux and I joke a lot, I don't promote Linux to people, that don't want to use it or have an interest to use it. If they ask, I will tell them. A lot of times it comes up just because of the YouTube channel itself. But if they got problems on Windows 7, I just help them fix their problems on Windows 7. So I don't think it's a good thing to go around forcing Linux on people that may not really want to. Giving them the option is great when that opportunity comes up.
I used to try years ago doing that. I'd go to, I live in Phoenix, and I used to go to retirement communities to do Linux talks to their computer user groups and hand out CDs back when CDs could hold a distribution. I got really disheartened doing that because no one would really take up Linux. They'd politely sit through the presentation and listen and ask me a question or two, and then blank stares. So
Yep.
I think my only thought on that is even I had a hard time years ago running Linux. Right, you had to want to do it. It wasn't just it was the better option. I felt in a lot of cases as a general desktop user. Whereas today, in the last few years, I feel like you can run just about any distro and have a pretty good experience with hardware, with stability, with all of the stuff that may have been in it, configuring things, right? Getting video cards to work, getting just getting the system set up. So being in your position, having done the same thing years ago, I stopped as well because it was just because I would run into that situation where somebody, okay, yeah, I'll try it. And then I'd get there and would, oh, let's, we're all excited. And then, oh yeah, you have a network card that doesn't work, or you have, something was just difficult. And they saw right away that it was like, oh, this is not going to be easy. So I just wonder if today maybe it's a little bit different, just simply because it is easier now.
I started with Linux back when 1510 was a thing, and right before 1604 was coming out. And I listened back to like how people say installing Linux was before then, like back in 2010, things like that. And I think I had it easy, right? Like I was one of those people who, granted, I'm a little insane, but I was able to just completely go at it and like wipe my disk without even really knowing what I was doing and just kind of get on with it. And there was a pretty steep learning curve, but I feel like because I didn't have issues with serious driver problems, I didn't have to run around compiling drivers from source or building my own sort of bootloader config because it's not loading properly. Like, because I never had to do that, where I hear a lot of people did have to do it, I feel like it's just a much more streamlined process that feels like a solid option. I've downloaded like super old ISOs and tried to use them, and I'm like, I don't understand how anyone ever actually did it, like intentionally, like not for an assignment. I just don't get it.
To be honest with you, I think that we should have on the Biddle Challenge sometime, just for fun, some of the first ISOs of some of the distros, like Fedora Core 1 and stuff like that. I think we should do that sometime.
Oh, Fedora Core is
1995.
a bear.
Yep.
I'd be all for that.
Esnix, Popey was on the one night on the after show in Biddle, and we downloaded Fedora Core, and he actually installed it and was talking on their what do you call it? Text
the
chat.
IRC channel.
Yeah, the
something?
IRC channel. And thank you, Colin. And he was telling he's typing, I'm coming from Fedora Core 1 and everything. It was hilarious.
Wow.
That was so funny.
I didn't think Fedora was usable until the early 20s.
Yep. Well, that was hilarious that night. See, that's what you miss in the after show if you're not on Zoom.
I actually have a disc. Yeah. I actually have a disc of Fedora Core 1 still in my collection.
Nice. Yep. I think we should do that sometime. Just saying.
Original disc that was actually made by the Red Hat team. It is.
If we're going back that far, I'm going to go with Susie instead.
Welcome, Dave. Welcome.
Welcome, Dave.
Good evening.
How are you?
Glad to finally make it.
Yep. Do you have any? Did you hear some of this conversation about the Windows 7 end of life and all that stuff? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Not really. I mean, you're not going to push people who never heard of Linux over to Linux just because Windows 7 is ending. So I tell people their options. You know, the Windows 10 upgrade is still free. They can continue with Windows 7, just not have security updates, which isn't a good idea. There is this thing called Linux, but most people are like, never heard of it. So, you know, as soon as they hear that they can still upgrade to Windows 10 for free, you know, most of them would rather do that than leap off a cliff into something unknown. And I personally am not going to push them into something that they're not comfortable with on a computer, because I want these things to be comfortable for them. Right. And maybe later I can come back and talk them into it, but not when they're freaking out over the end of life of their operating system and wondering where to go next.
Right.
Peter, I don't think I've. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Colin.
Go ahead.
I don't think I've forced anyone onto Linux, but every time someone has a problem with their Windows 10, I'll just say, Linux, mate, Linux. and that's got to the point where people have actually come and asked me, can you install it for me, right? So that's where a lot of the work colleagues and friends and families have got Linux on board. And I haven't forced anyone onto it. I've waited for them to come and ask me to do it. So
exactly right.
Yep.
Yep.
I would definitely recommend Linux to somebody if they're going to just decide they're going to just throw out their computer and go buy a Chromebook. Now, that's something I would say, hey, there's this operating system called Linux. Before you waste that money, would you like to give it a try? You can come over and look at my machine and see how it works. And if you don't like it, go get that Chromebook.
Well, what's the lesser of two evils, though? Windows or Chrome OS?
It's not about evils, JJ. It's really about what makes sense.
Well,
for
I mean,
the user.
What they're going to do with it.
I mean, I'm not one of those like hyper people, only free software only. I'm just saying, like, in terms of, you know, versus. I mean,
if they're faced with a situation where they have a computer that's not going to work because it's Windows 7, and for whatever reason they don't want to upgrade or can't upgrade, and they look at a Chromebook and they say, hey, this actually, I use Chrome. I like Chrome. I use Google stuff. This is actually pretty nice. I wouldn't dissuade someone from, I mean, I don't think a Chromebook is a bad option for people who want that kind of computer.
And the fact that you have Android app compatibility in just about every Chromebook now makes it so much more flexible.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about what we think is the best thing or whether we agree with Google or Microsoft, or it's about what is best for the people. And that's, this isn't just Windows 7 end of life. This is just general forever people trying Linux.
Yep.
If I would never evangelize and go out and say you should be using Linux, because that doesn't even make any sense. I mean, if it's someone coming to us and saying, what is Linux? Why would I ever care? Hey, great. Here's my opportunity to tell someone what I think is cool about Linux and why it works well for me and why it might work well for them. You know, it's, if you try to push an agenda on someone, we're not selling anything, right? That's the thing. That's why there's no marketing. That's why because there's nothing to sell. It's how do you use a computer? Do you want to use it in a different way? Here's a different way.
Yep.
Chromebooks are great.
Yeah, but
they've got to take the bait first before you reel them in.
Yeah.
That's true, and it does take a little bit of time. I would probably put in the caveat that I would probably recommend doing signature version of Windows instead of having like the crudware version that usually comes from OEMs because of all the pre-built software that's in the OEM version versus the signature version.
You want to hear something kind of wild, JJ?
Mm-hmm.
There are now like device ID things built into the hardware, so even if you do a clean install, it can recognize the device you have, grab the software from the OEM, and load it anyway.
Well, that's why I was mentioning Signature Edition, not the OEM edition that you get from like.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The device itself has an ID that it recognizes, and it will get that.
It'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
there's
great.
also the Intel management engine that is going to work.
Yeah, I've had that happen.
There's when I install Linux for people, or I go ahead, or I'm going to, the first thing I do is a few questions. Do you game? Do you use any specific applications? Right, and there's something else that I might ask as well. And the very next thing I will do before I do anything is make a recovery disk for that laptop or whatever it is. And that way I've got all my bases covered, because if they're using a specific application that's not used in Linux, then you have to make sure that, oh, maybe this is not for you because you might not be able to use it, or can they use it in a VirtualBox or Wine? You know, so I would hesitate to install it until I do my homework and find out whether they are covered for those things, because sometimes you can just go into it too quick and then find out, oh, they're saying, but I can't use this on this machine. Right, so you really got to be sure that these people can get by on Linux as well.
Peter, you got any thoughts on this?
Not really.
Where's that Solus sign, Peter?
Yeah, I love it. All right, so we're out of time anyway. There was another question about the whole, and Rocket League is been removed from Linux support. Okay, and it's not actually a joke. And I didn't really want to talk about Rocket League. I wanted to talk about the bigger picture of Linux support for games and stuff like that. But we will probably get into that next week, and because we're out of time. But everybody gets the last word. So Tony, last word, sir.
Thanks for doing this again, Rocco. Very interesting conversation this week. As you know, the distro challenge is already installed on the laptop. It's crashed already once.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
And it gave me an error. And I went to report it, and it said something about you can't report this error because of something. So that's not a good start.
Is it KDE?
Yes, it's KDE.
Then I bet it's that like KDE has an auto like crash reporter that determines whether your report is worthy of sending, and then just never sends it.
Right.
Oh, I'm not worthy then.
But, well, do me a favor, Tony, and post something about that in the Telegram group so everybody knows. I'd appreciate that.
Okay. I'll try to replicate it so that I know what it is I'm posting.
All right. Schickel, last word.
Well, I know I already talked about Solus, kind of. But I just want to say it was super cool how like I reported a bug within like an hour of it dropping, and it was fixed like within a couple hours later, and it's already been released. So that's the power of rolling release and just like attentive developers. Like that's super cool. The fact that we have a community that is so easy to communicate with, both on the development side and like just engaging with content creators or community managers. This kind of communication is something that I feel like a lot of other environments lack. So yeah, if we just keep that kind of thing going, I mean, progress can be made. So.
All right. Vash, last word. Vash, are you there?
I am. So I finally got to come in on Manjaro because they finally updated Zoom and I can actually see the settings. So woo for that.
Yeah.
And I guess we will see how Solus goes. I already tried to install it on my Desk Mini and the installer would not actually start. It got to the Plasma desktop and then it just didn't do anything. So I've re-downloaded an image. I'm going to re-burn it and see if that makes a difference. But see everybody next week.
All right. Peter, last word.
Today has been a really good day. Got my new bed delivered. I'm looking forward to that tonight. Solus got released today, if you don't know about that. And I got to spend 2 hours with you guys, which is fantastic.
Yep, I love it. Enjoy that bed tonight, dude.
Yeah.
Dan Kelly, last word.
Rocco, thank you for hosting the show tonight. It's been a real pleasure being with all of you and talking with all of you and all the subjects we've discussed, and looking forward to trying out the Solus and the Budgie and see how Budgie's done right, and see you next week.
All right, Jason, last word.
Well, thank you for having us all here, and I've got the Solus already installed in a virtual machine, so I'm just going to go ahead and start tinkering with that bad boy.
All right, Daniel, last word.
Rocco, thanks for the stream as usual, and everybody who helps out. It's good to be back after not being able to be here for a while. I've got 2 images of Solus downloaded, the Budgie and the Plasma. Kudos to them for having a mirror that's like right in my backyard. So that was awesome. So I'll test it out this week and we'll see what happens.
Nice. Colin, last word.
Peter, I was going to ask you how your bed, how your new bed is, but look, don't give me an answer now. I'll let you sleep on it. All right.
Wow, what a dad joke.
Thanks for the platform, Rocco. It's great. Looking forward to trying Solus. I might even try all of them. I don't know yet. See how we go. But Plasma's definitely first on my list to see what that looks like. So looking forward to that. And everybody have a great week.
All right, Penguin, last word.
Am I on? Okay. Yeah, thanks for hosting this, Rocco. And I'm not too happy about the news about Rocket League, but oh well. But everyone have a nice couple of weeks. I will not be here next week, so I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Eric, last word.
Rocco, thanks for doing this. As always, this is my weekly outlet to talk about Linux with everybody. It's always good to see everyone. And what can I say? This is a great conversation. It's near and dear to me. And yeah, I'll see you all next week. Have a great week, everyone.
Barbara.
Okay, as always, thank you, Rocco. And thank you, everybody else, for this great virtual lug. And it was an interesting conversation this evening.
All right. Esnix, last word.
Well, thanks, Rocco, for inviting me, and to everyone being so welcoming. Schickel, I just wanted to reply to something you said about installing old Linuxes. One thing I've always had success with is buying hardware that actually works with the distribution. So I've learned that lesson back in the 90s, and it's held true ever since.
All right. Steven, last word.
Thanks for the stream, Morocco. Had a good time as always. Stimulating conversation. And see you guys next week.
Dig it. James.
There's this really cool distribution called Solus. You guys should check it out. It's awesome. You may have heard of it. I don't know. But Rocco, thanks for having all of us on here and let me get a chance to geek out with you guys. This is fun stuff. Thanks.
Well, the only 2 times a year that James shows up is the times we try Solus. So at least we get to see him then.
And that is not on purpose. Actually, I had no idea you were talking about Solus tonight. I didn't. I just thought, I'll just get on and see what's going on. So thanks for letting me do this.
Yeah. Thomas, last word.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on again this week. Sorry I was like an hour late. Sorry also my video and microphone are terrible this week. I kind of forgot it. But I think I make up for it because I'm doing some extreme distro hopping right now.
We got an 800 number for that, Thomas, to help you out.
Oh, that's okay. It's only the first time. I can 2 more times and then I need a call.
All right, Vince, last word.
Another great discussion, everyone. Thanks so much for letting me be here. I'm so glad I made it home in time to catch the second half. I'm a bit sorry I missed the Ferrin discussion because I'll just leave you guys with one question. Has anyone else thought that Ferrin might actually be more than just one person with the amount of work that it gets put in and the way he just pops up everywhere in all the channels?
He's cloned himself.
I don't know. I don't want to start a conspiracy here, but but yeah, happy Australia Day to everyone who's celebrating. Happy Lunar New Year as well. If it's in my power, I'd be happy to make all you guys honorary Australians. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next week.
All right, Ricky, last word.
First off, I want to say, Farron, if you're still hearing this, best version of Farron OS I've ever used. You've made one stable distro, sir. I look forward to more updates about it in the future, since I will be doing a live install on your distro in about a month or 2. Also, I will be here next week for the review of Solus, so this time I will be on time for sure. And with that, I'll see you guys next week. And my last word: support autism.
Okay, Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco and crew, for another opportunity to get my weekly fix. I keep hearing all you guys talk about something called Solus. Is there sun worshippers now or something? I'm trying to figure out what this is.
Praise
and Rocco.
Well, if you were here on time, Dave, you would have heard that we're trying Solus this week for our district.
We were driving through snow to a distant state. I'm now in the great state of Iowa. But in reference to the 800 number you told Thomas, it's not a problem. It's a virtue. So you need to get that out of your head.
Therein lies the problem.
So thank you all and see you next week.
All right, JJ, last word. Dr. Random.
Okay. Thank you, Rocco, for the stream, and also thanks for having this great meeting place that we all get to meet. I want to encourage people to check out the Discourse forum for Biddle if anybody wants to insert any topics or any pieces of conversation that were either not mentioned in the show or you want to bring up in the show. That's also another way to reach out to the Biddle community. Other than that, later.
Nice. How did they get there, JJ? How did they get there?
It's bigdaddylinks.com, then click on community, and then click on Discourse.
Good enough. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We are trying Solus 4.1 this week, or actually the next 2 weeks. Again, thank you to Farron for all of the hard work you put into Farron OS. This past week, I did an interview with Wendy Hill, and it was an awesome conversation. You should listen to that if you haven't, or watch it, however way you do it. This coming week, on Friday, actually, yesterday, I sat down with Carl Rochelle of System 76, and his version will be released on Wednesday at 6 a.m., so check that out. Now, he was pressed for time, so I only got an hour to sit down with him, but I tried to squeeze as much as I could into that hour of multiple topics of questions. So you can enjoy that on Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. Other than that, that's going to do it for us. We are officially closed for business. We will see you next week. But until then, long live Linux.
Later.
Later, everyone.
Later. Long live Linux.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.